Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Elementary. Another great episode. A lot of very interesting things went down in this episode, even some surprises. We'll kind of break that down. Obviously, we have Joan, coming back to New York, as I figured as much, because it's like, okay, we got to help with this whole Gregson situation. Sherlock, he's back in London. I was like, I figured that's how things are going to work out. Lo and behold, he's not. He's here. It's like, I didn't expect that, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like, well, of course, he would be, because it's like, this is how we solve this crime. The fact of the matter is, he wants to be here on the front lines, because it's like, also like, he does his best work in person, so of course, but obviously they're lying to Marcus, because they don't want to put Marcus in that compromised position where, like, if things kind of get hairy, he has to lie about things. They don't want to put him in that compromised position, So that's interesting. Obviously, like, a lot is obviously we're kind of getting little hints and pieces to, like, some of the different changes that have happened in New York in that time too. In particular, like Paige's situation. Obviously, she's there for Gregson, and obviously, like, that life of, him calling in every day to be like, letting her know that he's okay. But that last call was, it's from Marcus. And obviously, she's also dealing with her MS. She's in a wheelchair and everything. It's the whole situation I thought was kind of interesting. And then maybe this is kind of foreshadowing. And she's like, the fact of the matter is, how's that partner of yours? It's like, he's doing okay. Like, the fact is, kind of check in with him, make sure that he's okay, because you guys might not be cops, but your job is just as dangerous. To me, that seems like some foreshadowing stuff, but I think it's also like, when you're away from each other, you won't always have each other's backs, so just at least check in to let each other know that you're okay. Obviously, it's kind of interesting being back in the brownstone after all this time. Obviously, no furniture and stuff. There's no lights, because they're trying to get that all set up, but it kept getting postponed and everything. It's like, why don't we shack up somewhere else? But for, like, Sherlock is like, no, this is not just our home. This is our laboratory. This is when we did our best work. So obviously, like, the brownstone is important to him and Joan. It's like, it's part of our process. Like, this is where we came to solve so many crimes that we've done over the years. And obviously, it's like, well, we don't even have a running toilet. He pulls out a bucket. She's looking like, really? So there's that. It's a very interesting case, kind of piecing everything together, because it turns out, like, obviously Gregson was shot, but it's like, it turns out, he based on the tracks. And I really like that the guy who had called in about Gregson. It's like, he was spray painting stuff. His buddy ran away and everything. But, I like that Bell was like, I want to thank you personally. I know you gave all your details to the other cops, but I wanted to thank you personally because of you. Gregson's a friend of mine, and I appreciate that you're the one that called in. But obviously, Sherlock kind of playing out the crime scene and everything, it actually did help him remember something, because even something as simple as, he hit his brakes, like, for, 3 seconds before it crashed. So it's like, okay, but the way the tracks were from, it showed that he wasn't coming from the direction of the precinct. He had actually gone somewhere else. Turns out this is all connected to a missing case. This dude named Tim, who Tim's kind of had a lot of issues. His mom looked at, like, the precinct that obviously, Gregson in the precinct, it's like, they do such a good job. Obviously, the other cops, in particular, her hubby, Marty. But Marty, obviously, it's like, he kind of buried a lot of stuff that his son did. And the fact is, like, obviously, like, the sad thing is, the mom thinks that Marty did it. It's like, and the sad thing is, even Marty's like, my ex-wife actually thinks I did something. Like, I had issues with our son, but the fact is, I loved him. I just accepted the truth that, hey, maybe there's a lot more to him, that he's kind of a bad seed, and I kind of cut ties, but she kind of didn't. She kind of wanted to believe the best in him and everything. And it's just kind of sad, but for him, it's a situation of, like, he was such a good boy, but obviously, as he got older, he got more trouble. I covered up so much stuff for him. I got a lot of stuff buried because of my cops. But I would never do anything to actually hurt my son. So that's a whole thing in itself. Obviously, like, Tim was a disturbed person. Like, there was a lot of people with issues with him. He'd just done a whole bunch of stuff. Obviously, stuff his dad had buried. But obviously, like, Gregson had found Tim's body, and that's why he had gotten shot at. So it turns into this whole thing of trying to figure everything out. It turns out that he'd actually stolen a friend Dylan's car, and he had made a fertilizer bomb that he was going to put on a ferry. So it's like, okay, he's on some domestic terrorism type of thing. But then it turns out, like, the person caught on some cameras, turns out that they were caught. It's the dude Patrick, who has a military history. But then, like, when they caught him and everything, it's just kind of like at first he was going, because it's interesting too, because, like, when you look at a point of, like, okay, so he had a gun ready and everything, he was standing his ground, but then eventually he put his gun down and it's like, hey, okay, I'm turning myself in, and then it's like, okay, and then he spills the beans, and then when it's all said and done, he's making it seem like over the argument is what this was all about, and the fact is his dad buried it, and the fact is it's like, really? Because it's like you waited a month later after that altercation to do something. It's like, okay, so what's up with that? Okay, so now it turns into a situation that Joan and Marcus don't believe him. It's like, you knew about him performing this terrorist act. It's like, wait, what? You just happened to kill him a day before he does this? It's like, I had no idea. They don't believe him, and they actually kind of start to think maybe this is actually part of some bigger terrorist group. Obviously, like, Tim wasn't in the best condition health-wise, so obviously he most likely got mixed up in some terrorist group. It presented the situation of someone mentally who could be, persuaded to join one. Obviously, Patrick wouldn't be the first person in the military who kind of might have been swayed in a certain extremist route and everything like that. So to me, that fits perfectly, because that means that explains why he was guns ready, because he was like, okay, if I have to. But then he's like, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so whatever future plans this group he's a part of has ready, that he's ready to kind of like, no, I'm going to take the fall for everything. This way, like, if it turned into an issue, like, there's too much of it could have potentially lead back to other people. So it's like, if I take the fall, it stops with me. So it definitely does seem like there's some grander plan at play here with that whole situation. I thought that was kind of a fascinating little detail with the whole situation. So, was not expecting that storyline to be what it is. I was wondering, like, because obviously every season's kind of having this overarching storyline. I thought this would be all about them back in London. Turns out not the case. I'm curious to actually find out how much of this season is actually going to take place in London. Maybe if it wasn't going to be the final season, they might have made more of a plot point of, like, the whole London situation. Maybe like half the season would have been in London, the other half not. Maybe that was always going to be the plan. Either way, I'm just curious about, like, that whole situation, because it's like, oh, like, a year has passed and they went on a whole bunch of adventures in London that we only got one episode of. So that's why I'm like, okay, especially with the way the rest of the episode plays out, I'll get to that soon enough. I just thought that was kind of fascinating. But so many good things kind of came up in this episode, because, like, especially Joan being like, okay, we haven't really talked about the whole Gregson situation, and he's like, what do you mean? It's like, we talked about it ad nauseum. It's like, yeah, that was before we went to London and everything. But now it's like, after these circumstances, it's like, obviously for Sherlock, I'm still pissed about what he did. He decided to protect Hannah over you. That's still an issue for me. But at the end of the day, I'm here now because it's the right thing to do. And she's like, well, you could go to jail for this whole situation. And he's like, is that really out of character for me? And for her, it's like, the fact of the matter is, maybe you should tell it to Gregson. It's like, he's unconscious. It's like, say what you need to say, because you might not get a chance. Don't do it for him, but do it for you. And that's the other thing, too. It's like, it's that thing of, like, and I brought this up before, it's like, Sherlock may have his issues with Gregson, but it doesn't erase the history they did. It kind of muddies it up, sure, because it almost, like, all the stuff that happened between us, and you would do something like that. You'd put Joan in a situation like that. So it's like, yeah, he's pissed at him, but for him, it's like, Gregson's still always been a friend, a mentor. He's family to Sherlock. So seeing him in this condition, knowing that he's in this condition, is like, wait, because it hit him like, hey, maybe there's a possibility Gregson won't come out of this. And he's up talking to Gregson, like, and it's like, maybe I'm just doing this for me. But it's like, yes, obviously I'm pissed about the whole thing, but it's like, and it's something, Gregson has actually talked about Sherlock too. It's like, if you'd come to me, let me know ahead of time, I would have helped you out. And he's like, the whole Hannah thing, I get it, she's your daughter, but the fact is you did what you did to Joan pissed me off. But the fact is, if you would come to me with the Hannah situation, I would have helped you find another way. It's like, you were trying to protect your daughter. I get it. Like, I would have helped you with that, but you decided to kind of handle things on your own. And because of that, like, Watson kind of got caught up in the riptide of it, But at the end of the day, he's like, I forgive you. I did like, Paige showing up and being like, no, you should say, like, the fact is, I don't know what went down with you. I've kind of got a little bit of an idea, but I still don't know everything that went down. But I'm sure, like, every day, he would tell you that he's glad that you're here, that he loves you. I mean, even if he wasn't shot, he probably still wouldn't have, even if he was awake right now, he probably wouldn't tell you how he really feels, because that's just how Gregson is. But the fact is that he does love you and care about you, and I think that makes Sherlock even more intent on being like, yeah, Sherlock loves and cares about him too. It's like, he missed you every day, and Sherlock missed him as well, because he's like, if you had gotten shot sooner, maybe we could have come together and this whole year wouldn't have been spent like divided like we were. Maybe we could have come back together before things being what they are, so I thought it was kind of a beautiful thing. And it's so interesting too, because like I brought it up last episode, like, oh, I figured everything's going to play out like this, especially because Sherlock makes a point to be like, yeah, we'll be here 3-4 days and then we'll be back to London, and you kind of see a look on Joan's face, I'm like, she's going to stay here, isn't she, at the end of the episode? But she was like, okay, let's pack our bags and stuff like that. We can leave this for Marcus. And it's like, Sherlock's the one to be like, no, you're going to stay. Like, I should stay too. But she's like, I don't want you to go. I'll be worried that you might get caught and sent to jail. He's like, you're right. I'll go back to London. I was like, what? I did not see that coming up, the play out the way it did. Once again, it's like surprised me because, like I said, I was so shocked that he came to New York. But once again, it makes sense. But for him, it's like, that's the thing of me being like, are you doing that for like, oh yeah, you want to divide and conquer of like, okay, I'll go back to London, you stay here so you can help out Bella and everything? Is it really that? Or are you also doing it for Joan's sake and you're just not telling her? Because the fact of the matter is, you know how being back in New York, you saw the look on her face of her being like, well, we got to go. Like, I think he reads her better than she kind of realizes. Like, she probably doesn't realize how much, like, what her body language is saying, that she probably feels good being back in New York or working with the precinct again. Because even Bella was like, hey, if people got issues, they can come to me about you working here. I mean, to be fair, it was like only Sherlock who confessed to Michael's murder, so it's not like there's much issue with her, but still. So it's like, okay, I was like, that's so fascinating. It's like, oh, and I thought like, oh man, so Sherlock's going to go back to London and we're going to bounce back between the two. But it's like, no, another surprise where Sherlock's looking at everything, walks into the FBI building. I'm like, wait, what? And he's turning something. I was like, why would you do that? And then it clicked in my head. I was like, why would you do that? He's going to turn himself in because he's going to try and make a deal with the feds. It's like, I'm going to help you take down this terrorist group and you kind of erase everything associated. Like, I think he's trying to get back in their good graces. Maybe he's trying to get like an immunity deal on the whole Michael thing. Because it's like, hey, like, you want to, like, let's face it, Michael was a serial killer. The fact of the matter is, the world's not really going to miss him. Hey, I can help you be here to work some terrorist group. Like, the fact is, he made Joan think he's going back to London, and I think that's something he's going to keep up. He's going to keep up that lie, so she doesn't, because for him it's like he needs Joan in his life, but he knows Joan wants to be back in New York, and it's like, the only way I'm gonna make this right is I clear my name, because he doesn't want to throw Hannah under the bus. I don't think, even under these circumstances, especially with Gregson, and it's like, you know, where they are, he's forgiving Gregson and everything. So I think he's trying to find a different way around this, make it so that Hannah never has to suffer the ramifications. Who knows, later on in the season, Hannah, things might get complicated. Hannah might come forth and be like, it wasn't Sherlock who did it, it was me. She might turn herself in that regard. I don't know. But I think that's where Sherlock's going. And I'm curious, is it going to be the same Malik, the same FBI agent? I wonder we're going to, I mean, I kind of get the feeling that's going to be the case. I mean, it might be a different agent that we're dealing with this season, but I kind of get the feeling it's going to be her. It's definitely going to be interesting. Also, once again, like this terrorist group, I was bringing it, you know, I brought it up before. I think I brought it up last episode as well, but like wondering, will this have anything to do with the Cabal at all? I feel that's probably not the case. Like, it probably might just be some other group. Maybe there's some connection, maybe there's not. Maybe I'm getting my hopes up for something that will never be. I want it to be that case because I want some final showdown between Moriarty and Sherlock, because I think that'd be a nice way to tip over the series, but I don't know what that whole situation is necessarily going to entail. I mean, we know she's free and she's kind of, you know, at, you know, odds with Moreland. Like, they're, like, once again, I brought up last episode, they're in a stalemate because of Sherlock. So I don't know what that's necessarily all going to tell. I mean, he is back in town, and like, obviously, like, some of her connections are obviously still in town of New York. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where that potentially could take us. Like, you know, this seems like it's, you know, Sherlock's Hail Mary to try and clear his name so that, you know, him and Watson could kind of have their happy ending to be back with the people. Because this isn't just about Watson, it's also about him, because this is his home too, but he wants to be here with Watson. He, you know, he felt good in the UK, but, you know, in London, but I think if it's without Watson, he wants to make Watson happy, but he also wants to be near Watson. And also, this is the foundation. This is where his whole life kind of came together. So we'll see whether that's the case, because maybe it's a situation he does go back to London ultimately, but this is making it a situation where he can easily come back and forth whenever he wants to. So yeah, him and, you know, because he brings it up last episode of he was happy in London, so I think that still be true, but I think he'll still pop in and like, let's work on a case together, Joan. So like, it's not a situation of they're forced apart. They can come together whenever they want to and not have to sneak around and make a whole thing up. But, you know, currently where my mindset is with all of this, it's definitely going to be interesting to see whether that ends up being the case or not. I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.